Richard Relis here with columnist Bob Robb, and it appears no one is filing any legal challenges over the state legislature, so it looks like the makeup is set. Bob, you don't see much action when the legislature convenes in January.
I don't. We have a lot of factors at work. You've got the all-in approach by the Democrats to try to win one or two houses of the legislature, which came up short. So what does that do to their psyche and their future plans? You have Republicans who remain in control, but by only one vote in both parties. You got Doug Ducey entering the last 2 years of his tenure as governor, and so if there's any legacy projects that he wants, now's the time. You got the passage of Prop 208 and what that means in terms of K-12 education funding, and then you've got the uncertainty of COVID hovering over all of it. So in terms of looking forward and saying, as a result of this election, what does it mean for state policy? I think we're in for a period, at least lasting through the next legislative session, of just hunkering down status quo-ism. I don't think there's a lot of political maneuvering room to do anything other than get another skinny budget enacted for the next fiscal year and wait until we've got a vaccine and things settle down.
You mentioned that, typically education funding becomes a hot topic at the Capitol, but you mentioned in the column that the voters passing the Invest in Ed Act takes that pressure away.
I think that's one of the paradoxical results of the passage of Prop 208. Despite the uncertainty over the state fiscal position that COVID creates, I believe in the absence of Prop 208 passing, there would be pressure within the legislature and probably from the governor to have kind of a stretch budget, something that did try to achieve something more for K-12 education. That was in the skinny budget that they passed for this fiscal year. The only additions were for K-12 education, and they were fairly significant. The surcharge from Prop 208 goes into effect January 1st. The first distribution of monies will take place at the end of June. And I think that sort of relieves the pressure to try to stretch on the general fund budget from existing sources to do something more for K-12 education. So
right, that
there are always unintended consequences, and I think that's one of them.
Right, that the voters put this program in place, and let's write it out and see if it is in fact what they wanted. And I guess for a libertarian-minded conservative who worries about the nanny state, the legislature not doing much from your end is probably not a bad thing.
It's not. The one area that I cite where I think that COVID has exposed a big issue that needs to be dealt with is the uncertainty over the governor's authority to manage a pandemic. He only has explicit authority to order quarantines of those with the disease or who have been exposed to disease. There's no explicit authority to issue stay-at-home orders, to shut down some businesses, to dictate the conditions of operations of businesses that are permitted to remain open. That ambiguity should be resolved. But given how narrow the composition of the legislature is, and the fact that there will be a lot of Republicans who believe that the governor should have less authority than he has exercised, relying on implied powers, and Democrats and some Republicans who will say, no, we need to make those authorities explicit and perhaps expand it. Even though this is a giant gap, I don't anticipate there being a consensus being able to be formed.
Yeah, but that could be a very interesting debate given those ideological divides. That's enough probably to keep them busy and us.
You bet.